I want to just go to, if we can put the cover up, the New Republic. Now, the New Republic is kind of, I guess, equivalent to the National Review on the left, on the center left, as the National Review is, I guess, the centrist. The Buckley magazine has kind of become a centrist magazine or news source for the controlled opposition Republicans. They have a huge article, a couple days old. The administrative state is under attack. Huge podcast piece and an article. Why progressives must protect institutions that help safeguard the public. And it goes down and they go, what's interesting to me about these new Bannonite attack on the administrative state, because earlier they talk about when I talked to CPAC about the deconstruction of the administrative state and how that was a focus of the Trump first term. What's interesting to me about these new Bannonite attack on the administrative state is I don't think it's just libertarianism of the familiar kind. There's really a white supremacist ideology wearing a different set of clothes. It's about dismantling the parts of government that are trying to create a more inclusive, egalitarian society and leaving unchecked and unshackled the parts of government that terrorize communities of color. Obviously, nothing could be farther from the truth, but you've got their attention and they're nervous because that's kind of the New Republic, like the National Review, is kind of a fat cat. It's a magazine for fat cats, right? That's who really reads it and funds it. Brother Kennedy, I'm going to get Eastman up here in a second. I got Poso to follow. Your thoughts on this, on the outright war, it's us versus them on the administrative state. And as I said in Getter this morning, like I said last week, it's a threefold strategy. Number one, take the moral high ground and particularly exemplify the woke and weaponized DOJ and FBI. Number two is unite those Republicans and the people like the Bobby Kennedy crowd that are your natural allies and expose, like the 20 this week that wouldn't hold Schiff to account, expose the controlled opposition Republicans, in air quotes, but work, and there's lots of people that are following Kennedy right now that are kindred souls. We do not agree on everything. In fact, we do not agree on a lot. But in the rank order of the things that we have to do to save this republic, I think we agree on quite a lot. And number three is to make sure we're on offense completely and totally against the Biden crime family and everything it represents about the sellout of our nation, and to metaphorically burn it to the waterline. Brian Kennedy, your thoughts and observations, sir.
Well, that's a great summation, Steve, of where we are today. I think when we look at where we are in the New Republic, and they're trying to criticize the dismantling of the administrative state that you're talking about, I think it's worth saying that the country has gone from a republic to something, for at least the last 100 years, of a progressive administrative state, and that administrative state piece has become very large, very intrusive, very ineffective. But somewhere between when you said dismantle the administrative state and today, I think we've crossed over into something more like a totalitarian democracy, which is a regime that has aspects of totalitarianism, but with many of the forms of democracy. And the worst part about all that is anybody who says anything about that, who criticizes that, who would suggest that we're losing our freedom, who doesn't follow the regime narrative, as it were, if you do that, you're going to get arrested. So Trump disagrees with that, and so he gets arrested. And I know you're going to have John Eastman coming up soon, but so John tries to defend the president, and he's going to get disbarred, or they're going to try to disbar him, because the whole idea of totalitarian democracy and the administrative state where we are today is that you have to lie and deceive. And so to say that this is somehow this criticism is anything to do with white supremacism, that's just utter nonsense. That's lies and deception. gaslighting of the worst possible kind. And then we're going to lie about you. We're going to arrest you in the case of Trump, and we're going to intimidate you and cause you not to be able to make a living. And so we're going to look up all the facts about you. Senator Hawley talking to the deputy director of the FBI. There's something very evil and deceptive here that those conservatives who believe in freedom need to understand. They don't. They think this is about tweaking things here and there, and everything's going to get, back to normal. It's not. That republic that we love, that's been dismantled.
Yes. This is what when Thomas Massey came out and said, constitutionally, I don't think she'd be fine, and all this kind of what I call effete intellectualism. The Constitution's been shredded. Mark Levin and Cruz say it much better than I. We're in a post-constitutional America, sir?
Absolutely. The political scientist John Marini from Claremont, he described this 30 years ago, literally 30 years ago, that we're living in a post-constitutional age. We have the forms of a constitution, but it doesn't have real meaning in the lives of everyday Americans. That the government that is meant to follow, to be restrained by the Constitution, it doesn't seem to restrain them, does it? And so it's big government. It's not even like big government run amok, as if it's just a bunch of bureaucrats spending too much money. This is, as I say, a kind of totalitarianism, and you got to be careful how you talk. When I say those kind of things, we have to be careful not to seem extremist here, but totalitarian in that it tries to control the totality of our existence. And so that's from speech to the way we live our lives to the way we raise our children. And so this is something we really have to wrap our minds around, because
and by the way, it's hand in glove with the old friends here. The administrative state's got their old friends in technology, just like she does. Why does she have that? Because the totalitarian state of the Chinese Communist Party is old friend Bill Gates and American technology that allows that to happen. Remember, this show, we're banned on Twitter, we're banned on Facebook, we're banned on YouTube. Banned. Why? Because of talking about the vax, because talking about the election being stolen, talking about Fauci and Chris Wray. You think we're not going to talk about that? Am I just going to shut up and not do that because these platforms, these tech oligarchs? Not in 1 zillion years. Not in 1 zillion. Brian, before I go to John Eastman for a second, I want you to hang around. Is there any doubt in your mind if Donald Trump, Rachel Maddow said the quiet part aloud, if Donald Trump just walked in front of the sticks this morning after he played his morning golf round, said, upon further review, I'm dropping out of the presidential race in the Trump movement. I really appreciate folks. It's been great, but I'm going to go work on my real estate business. That all of these efforts to put him in prison for 500 years, would they go away, sir?
I don't believe so at all. I believe they would up their game even more, because that's the whole idea, the kind of ritual humiliation that would be involved with putting him in jail. That's what they want, because they want to intimidate everybody who disagrees with them. And so putting him in jail.
So you would say to get Trump in prison, even if you said that to get Trump in prison, to show he's the Bangalore torpedo, he's the armor-piercing shell that's going to breach that seawall that the rest of us are going to run up and back of and take the high ground at Omaha Beach and then into Normandy. They want to humiliate that. They want to send the signal that if you do that, if you go down that road, you will be imprisoned, you'll be bankrupted, and you'll be humiliated, sir?
Yes, absolutely. And Donald Trump knows that. He understands there's something going on here. When he says we've gone from just being woke to actually communists, he's onto something. He understands who these people are. He dealt with them for 4 years in his administration. He sees the look on their face now. These aren't people following the Constitution. These are not people following the rule of law. There is something else about them. They want to destroy MAGA and the belief that human beings in the United States can govern themselves in a free society. That's what they're really after. Trump understands that. That's why he's running for office, and that's why he's not going to back down.
And that's why he's going to win. Up 45-39 right now. Hey, don't get me wrong. Mark Elias and these guys, all the evil geniuses on their side, they're working nonstop about how they're going to steal it. That's what it's going to get down to. Stopping them from stealing this one, the 81 million votes, quote unquote. Let me bring in Brian Kennedy. Observations. I know you're a long time Dodger fan and resident of Southern California. Your observation. By the way, Daily Mail lead story last night after it was over was quite complimentary, Jack, with the photographs of what happened. The Catholics were Catholics, so the number one news site in the world was very complimentary of what you guys did in breaking this. Brian Kennedy, your thoughts?
Well, one, great job, Jack, at Dodger Stadium. It really does show you, though, that this is a war between good and evil, and that there's something really powerfully demonic going on here with the Dodgers and with all this transgenderism. I actually think transgenderism is going to be on the ballot in November of 2024. Americans are going to have to decide whether or not they're going to have a president who's going to fight the woke communist agenda that is permeating the United States, or are they going to have a president who defends that agenda? I think it has to be that stark. And you will see the forces of light, which we represent, the forces on behalf of God and the family and human freedom on one side, and you will see this darkness on the other, where people are trying to twist and pervert everything that is good and true about humanity, starting first with this destruction of God in the public square and this horrible thing that happened in Los Angeles with these awful people doing this. Americans have a healthy live and let live attitude. This is not about that. This is about demonic forces at play in the public square, and we're going to have to stand up against them. And thankfully, Jack and others did that in Los Angeles last night.
Brian Kennedy, give me a minute on Ukraine. Your thoughts about this debacle that we've led the Ukrainian people into, sir.
Well, Steve, I'm always more interested in what the effect's going to be on the people of the United States. And from the get-go, it looks to me anyway that much of what was going on here was designed to strengthen the security state in this country and use it to be able to strengthen the Biden regime. That if we're fighting a war, supporting a war over in Ukraine, then the Republicans who have this sort of remnant belief in the military and military spending is all important, then they were going to focus on that rather than holding the Biden regime to account for all of its malfeasance. And so what did we see last year? We saw that big omnibus bill that Republicans signed on to, which was an enormous amount of money that didn't need to be spent, which is adding to the inflation we have today.
Yeah.
The Republicans did that because Ukraine was just so important. And today, the Republicans in Congress and in the Senate are not going, in my judgment, adequately against the Biden administration because they're nominally on the side of this war in Ukraine, which is taking political precedent over everything that's going on in this country. So it turns out Ukraine's been a very useful tool for the Biden administration.
Yeah, and they're talking about a supplemental. We're killing that. Real quickly, what's your social media? How do they get to you, Brian?
Brian T. Kennedy on Getter and Truth Social. Thanks, Steve. You're the best, brother. One of the smartest guys we got. Thank you. Let me give a very specific example, and I want to make a caveat here for this audience. We got this is going to be a long, tough road in this impeachment, and this is another line of work. You're going to have to be able to do two things at one time, which is try to take down the Leviathan or confront the Leviathan. At the same time, you're trying to impeach someone for bribery and for treason. This is not a small thing. And I agree with McCarthy. You can never make this political. This has to be the facts themselves. But in proving the Biden case, you also prove how the apparatus works. Remember, I said yesterday, in the next 72 hours, you are going to see who governs you.
It's all going to be revealed who governs you. And if you think you are governed by yourselves through your representatives and what a constitutional republic is supposed to be established for and deliver, you are going to be, I think, quite shocked. They're cutting deals left and right and back here. They got the knives out, and they're cutting people up, and they're cutting deals nonstop in the imperial capital right now. And the moneyed interests are going crazy, right? Remember, last night, Chris Hayes, you had Boebert, you had MTG, you had others bravely sitting on the DOD, and the DOD bill is overbloated. I consider myself a hawk. It's 800. We cannot continue on with the defense budget that's big. The defense budget has to be cut, and one of the reasons it has to be cut, we have to bring the Defense Department to 21st century warfare, fifth generation warfare, economic warfare, using your capital markets. This is one of the reasons they're trying to de-dollarize us, trying to get us off the SWIFT system. But in the other line of attack, in the other line to save this republic, you can't diminish this. When we say Mayorkas has to be impeached, look at the invasion on the southern border. When we say Merrick Garland has to be impeached and Chris Wray has to be impeached, Chris Wray, by the way, appointed by Donald J. Trump, have to be impeached, is because of their activities and their actions. When you say a guy like Biden has to be impeached, we have to have a standard of how serious this is. And I haven't been able to follow the entire thing. But when one of the professors there, it gives the opening dialogue, and he's got some nice things he's laying out, and he's impeachable. And then Raskin, right on his cross, gets, and I think I heard this correctly. Well, have you seen any impeachable offenses? No. Is this worse than Trump on January 6th? No. That's maybe not a witness I call initially to lay out the case. Maybe my staff should have gone through and asked questions like that in making sure in the traditional preparation of the witnesses. And if that was the professor's thought and that's what he believes, maybe we sit around a conference table and say, hey, when we have on the whiteboard that professor's name, why don't we put him on the maybe category? Maybe we bring him in a couple weeks. Maybe we don't start with him. It's just an idea. Remember the phony impeachment. This show started on the impeachment. Why did I start this show? Why am I even sitting here? Remember, when John Frederickson started talking about, Nancy Pelosi's named this thing, she's going to roll on by Thanksgiving. This is in 2019. When she's at the UN. I said, and they're going to have a vote in the House impeaching by Thanksgiving. They'll toss it to the Senate, and the Senate will have the trial. By Christmas, he won't be removed from office, but he'll be impeached, and they'll have that to kick off the election year 2020. Now, I was off by 6 weeks, right? But everybody at the time said, Steve, that's fake news. What are you talking about, fake news? No. We started war room impeachment. But if you look at the Democrats as a big a joke, and this is why this impeachment could reveal why we're in the Ukraine, because I still can't figure it out. It's not in the vital national security geopolitically of the United States of America, right? And they keep saying the sovereignty, the territorial integrity, the self-determination of the Ukrainian people. Well, that's interesting for the Ukrainian people, and God bless them, and the frontline nations in NATO, go for it. But that's not in the vital national security interest of the United States, so maybe we find out why we shoveled, as I told you, and everybody else has been lying to you, but they finally admitted $113 to $115 billion already, 60 Minutes. And they got another one, $80 billion this year, starting with the 6. But you go back to the phony first impeachment, and you see how they rolled. And until we got Elise Stefanik, what'd they call her, impeachment Barbie? Until Elise Stefanik stepped up to a microphone, I think on the second or third day, and was able to put order into it, we were back on our heels on that. We had no organized effort and no thought. And by the way, Jim Jordan and others of these guys who are nice men and good men, but we're talking about information warfare. We're talking about the way to present a narrative so people can understand it. And maybe I'm going to get off here because we're juggling balls, and maybe it's all been great this morning. But it didn't feel great. And this is at a very high level. We have to set standards. What did Chris Hayes, just in the can I play, I want to play the clip before, in this thing. Can we just play the clip? And can I take out Boebert and MTG? I just want to play I want to play the Confederate Army clip. Because this last night, on the opening segment of Chris Hayes, and Chris Hayes is a smart guy. He's kind of Rachel Maddow's, her understudy, right? Hang on for 1 second. So when Chris Hayes opens with the A block about MTG and Boebert and what we're doing to the defense budget to actually get some control of this thing, and symbolically, at least for now, because the Senate's not going to approve it, take Austin's salary down to $1 is important. They blew up last night. We are the Confederate Army. They're saying this is the second wave of the insurgency. This is the stakes, and they make it in a clear thing that their audience, and why do I think I play so much MSNBC and CNN? People are on there, oh, he's playing MSNBC again. It's too much. Come on, dude. You need to see how it's being crafted. That's the war we're in. Man up. It's no time for whining, and it's no time to curl up in a fetal position, and no time to suck your thumb. By the way, if this is too hard for you, then that's what called a Sunshine Patriot. Go someplace else where they're going to throw you shiny toys all day. Because here you're going to do work, and you're going to man the ramparts as you've done, because we're in this because of you right now. You have gotten us to this point, and they hate it. Let's play. I want to play quickly. This is what they think of you. Behind closed doors in this city, and this is just not the MSNBC crowd. This is what the rhinos, this is what the lobbyists, this is what the Republican establishment, this is what Romney and McConnell and all their guys and their staff, this is what they think of you. Let's play it.
Overthrowing our government, and it has lead elements, including Trump, including folks like the former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, and the lead soldier in this in Congress is Tommy Tuberville, who is ridiculous, radical, reckless, and racist. And I've called him Senator Redneck because that's what he is. You want someone to lead this ridiculous, racist thing that undermines our national security? Tuberville's like me. I'll be your guy, and he is now doing that. He's got 10 minions who followed him to vote against CQ Brown, and every day it's something new that undermines our national security. It hurts our troops. It hurts our morale. Our enemies are celebrating. But Vladimir Putin loves this. But there's also the political side of this. This is driving the GOP further and further away from America, and especially from independents like me. I've called this the Confederate wing of the GOP. They don't want to preserve the military of 2023. They want to create the Confederate Army. They want to take us back to the 1800s. They don't understand this modern world, and they're fighting it. And we've got to fight back.
No, as a native of Richmond, Virginia, I can honestly say, given my hometown was burned to the ground, no, we're not interested in rebuilding the Confederate Army. And to have a guy like that's a left-winger, who's been running these veterans groups forever, right, to sit there and go, oh, I'm an independent, is a joke. However, this is what they say behind, this is what the rhinos and these guys saying behind closed doors. You're the most radical element. Well, here's a radical thing we've undertaken. Here's why you're radical. Remember, since 1967, this process we've seen in the last couple of days has not happened. They had these bills done in July, and they never brought them forward. Why? They don't want to see the unpleasantness of bringing these things forward, the unpleasantness of bringing these things forward and people actually debating how much money is spent, the scale is spent, and where it's spent. They don't want to do any of that. And I realize on this show we're going to have to juggle two things. I want the audience, we're going to have to juggle going back in. In fact, can we cut back in? Let's see what's happening at the impeachment. I've been and about there are some very powerful things coming forward. Some very powerful things to be said. We will comprise it in the evening show, but let's go back to it.
I think it was Professor Turley talking about, because he's not prejudging, of course, but he's just suggesting that maybe we want to look into criminal activity like obstruction, fraud, and abuse of power. So let's take fraud. So shouldn't we be concerned that a New York judge just found President Biden's organization committed fraud every year for the last 10 or 15 years, and that under the Martin law in New York, that Biden organization is now subject to dismemberment and dismantlement because of the fraudulent activity? Shouldn't that be of concern to us?
That should be of concern with respect to Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump again. And in this case, we're not speculating. A judge actually made that ruling?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Should we be concerned
Be ready
about
for
the
this.
personal? I mean, while we're at it, since we're loading
Be ready. These are all the clips we're going to play on MSNBC. These are the clips we're going to play on CNN. when you go about to do this, it is quite complex and quite complicated. It has to be very thought through. You have to be 3 or 4 moves ahead to understand how things are going to be crafted, to understand what's going to be asked, who's going to be brought forward. The facts themselves are damning. Remember, on the laptop from hell, that initial thing, and they got the 51 intel officers to sign it, and he denied he lied in front of the American people thing. They understood the radioactivity of what Hunter had in that computer, the interconnections, and the money crossing hands from the Chinese Communist Parties, from the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party, including Patrick Ho, who Hunter Biden, not Steve Bannon, who Hunter Biden told, said the New York Times was going to announce that he was one of China's #1 spies. Now, I don't know if he's China's #1 spy, but he was definitely an intelligence asset, as was the chairman. And now you've got these emails that have come out to talk about where they're actively working for them and taking money from them, Jim Biden and Hunter, to actively buy energy assets in Louisiana. But this has to be, it's called muzzle velocity. It has to, boom, it has to come forward with a motive power, with force, and it has to be clarity and clarifying. I think, and it's not perfect because we're being chop-blocked all around, on the other line of work, on taking on the Leviathan, on taking on the administrative state, of taking on something, and people, the constitutional conservatives go, why are you populists so divisive? Why are you so mean? Why is it everything's, your hair is on fire and everything's apocalyptic? Because the country is in a post-constitutional existence. Don't believe me. Look at this budget right here when they're going through of what's happening at DOJ and what's happening at the FBI and what's happening on the southern border. They admit in these discussions the last couple of days there's 6 million illegal aliens here on Biden's watch. I think the numbers actually will be 10 at the end. President Trump's saying 15, but by the time it's all over, it's 10. And we've had reporters down from the Darien Gap years ago, and now CNN's down there in Tapachula, and this is amazing. You know, Aaron Burnett, it's a CNN exclusive. This is huge. The 6,000 that we reported on weeks ago, it's all a big reveal to them. Lace them up tight and lace them up high, because the next 72 hours are going to be quite brutal, and you're going to have a lot of revelations here. Who's prepared to fight? Who is going to fight? Who is going to have your back?